Hey, what's up? It's Baz the Magician, and happy Thanksgiving Eve, or happy Thanksgiving, depending on when you're watching this video. So, as I said, I'm going to be making a video on how magicians think. Now, due to the amount of questions and bombardment that I'm getting from people asking me my political opinion, things like that, I figured what better way to explain deception than to use what the government goes over and does that people are not aware of and break down these situations to show you how deceptive these things really are. Now, I want to be clear. I am by no means saying anybody should do anything. I'm just simply explaining factual situations by presenting all of the information to you so you can realize what exactly is going on. So when you get into these situations, you know how to take them apart, think, and realize what's going on. Now, I am going to be touching up on some subject matter that's going to, ruffle people's feathers or things like that. But I assure you, instead of jumping the gun, listen to what's going on, listen to what I'm explaining, and you will see that this video is part of that. It'll make sense in the end. So I first have five specific things that I'll be talking about. I had to write them down that will break down in order on how things went in this past two or 3 years. So let me begin by explaining the deception level of when a bill is introduced to Congress. So the first thing here is there's wording manipulation going on because Congress is very confusing. The average person doesn't understand when a bill is put in what exactly happens. And that's not to talk down to people, that's just how it is because most people don't want to know about this stuff because it's too confusing. Congress relies on that manipulation tactic to screw around with the way people vote. So let me explain. I'm going to make some stuff up and present a bill. It's not in a bill. I'm just saying this is how bills are made up. Now, I don't know if these are actual things, but let's say I'm a congressperson. And let's say I'm for crude oil, whatever that means. But I'm against abortion. What happens is the person who's on the opposite side of me will put a bill together specifically knowing I'm against abortion and then put pro-abortion in this, which I'm going to vote against, but they will put, you're for crude oil inside the same bill. So what they do is they set up a situation where they put two completely contradictory things in a bill. Something you're for and something you're against. And what happens is, because the bill has to either say yes or no, you're screwed no matter what you do. If you say no to the abortion, for me, if I would say no to the abortion thing, what would happen is, I'd be also saying no to crude oil, which is what I'm for. Now, the average person may or may not know that, but Congress doesn't care about that. If somebody's going to launch a political campaign against me, they will use the simple fact that I said no to crude oil. They will use that against me, when in fact I am for crude oil, but I said no to the abortion. It's not I said no to that, I said no to the abortion. But what happens is, because when you say no to part of it, you say no to all of it, even if it goes against your own understanding or morals. The other side weaponizes the part that you said no to and says he said no to the positive thing and never let the public know. So again, it's a deceptive practice on how things are put together that the Congress, when it comes to voting, they use that as manipulation tactics to get away with all sorts of stuff because they're basically saying, we know the American public doesn't do this, let's mess with them. That's a problem, which is why single bills that have nothing else added to them need to be put into Congress. It's ridiculous. So yeah, that's a manipulation tactic number one. Now, I'm going to get into a little bit more of a controversial thing because I want to show you how bad things get manipulated, not just by the media, but the media takes stuff and runs with it. So let me explain. I'm going to talk about the COVID case numbers, and I'm going to use these as examples. These are straight up examples to show you how this data was manipulated into making you think stuff that's not actually true. Let me explain. These are hypotheticals. I'm just using scenarios. I didn't say any of this happened. I'm just using scenarios to get you to understand it. I'm just clarifying that. So let's say during the height of COVID, Utah had 12 cases, and Nevada only had 2. There are a total of 14 cases between the 2 states. But what was going on in a lot of these cases is that people were leaving Utah and moving to Nevada. Meaning, let's say, again, there were 12 cases in Utah, and there were only 2 cases in Nevada. If 10 people moved from Utah to Nevada, and those were part of the 12 that had COVID, what would happen is there would only be 2 COVID cases left in Utah, and now there would be 10 inside, 12. There would be 12 inside, I messed up that number, sorry. So there were 12 cases in Utah and only 2 in Nevada. If 10 of those cases left Utah and went to Nevada, there'd be 12 cases in Nevada and now only 2 in Utah. There were still 14 cases. What was going on here is the situation was taken where if people moved out of Utah, they would say the COVID cases went down. And because the people were moving around the country, the numbers were being moved. The numbers were just being swapped around. Now, I want to be clear. There were COVID cases that did increase, but not to the extent the media was doing it. The media was playing with numbers by saying, oh, look, the COVID cases went down here and they increased here. No, that's due to the people having it, carrying it there. So what was going on here is, let's say some system was put in place, the mask mandate, and then people didn't like the mask mandate, they moved. They would say, oh, look, the mask mandate, see, the mask lowered COVID. No, they got people that had it to move to a place where masks were they didn't need to be tolerated. So these people were being moved around the country, and opportunity was taken where the media was sabotaging this in that regard. Now, again, I want to be clear that these are scenarios we're making up to get you to understand the situation what was actually going on behind the scenes that you didn't know. But the numbers were being manipulated. COVID cases may have risen, but not to the extent that the media portrayed it. And when a bunch of people moved out of a place, of course the COVID number went down. The people that had it left. So it was insane, the shit that was going on with this. Again, there were COVID cases that did happen where knew people getting it. But this number-playing media bullshit was asinine. And social media locked you into only knowing certain sides of one thing, depending on what you were watching. Both sides were cutting out those specific facts to, again, what I resort back to is the whole bill proposal. See, they said no. These are the manipulation tactics that are being used. Now, I'm going to go into something a little bit more recent, which is the job increase, which is under the Biden administration, so to speak. Okay, so during the COVID lockdown, I want people to get out of their head whose administration it is. I'm going to tell you straight up, ignoring names, ignoring figures or whatever else it is. I'm just going to put out a straight statement. Doesn't apply anywhere, it's just a statement. I'll get into the specifics after. So, first thing, the number of jobs that were closed, lost permanently, businesses closed, was astronomical. That was just through a natural course of progression, regardless of whether you had mandates in it or not. Okay? That was just, the government pushing it didn't help the matter, but that wasn't completely the fault of it. So that was taken and running with it. So the media decided to sabotage that as well. So anyway, let me continue. The amount of jobs that were closed, lost permanently, people out of work, whatever. Okay? There was a ton of them. So what happens now is the Biden administration, now I'm going to start adding in factors and names and stuff like that. I just wanted to get that statement about the jobs that were lost. Permanently. Closed businesses, people lost their livelihoods. That was a base fact. Nobody could ignore that. All right, so now what happens is the Biden administration is bragging about how their jobs were increased. That's a false and misleading statement. Let me explain. They mandated people out of work or gave them an ultimatum where if you don't get this COVID shot or the vaccine, you don't work. Thousands of people lost their job like that. So what happened was a lot of businesses were closed, and then the Biden administration slowly released these lockdowns or gave permission for lockdowns, which is why people hated DeSantis in Florida, because he wasn't listening to that. And so putting that aside, the bottom line here is the people, the structure was laid out here. We're going to slowly do this. What happened was all of the people that were laid off and all of the people that lost their jobs and their businesses were now returning. Biden administration used that to manipulate to say, look, our job growth is going. No, the job growth didn't go. What happened was they used the fact they kicked people out of jobs and then returned to work as job growth. That's completely ridiculous. But that is the manipulation tactic. So when you hear the economy is better, that's false. The economy is not any better. It's actually worse than it was simply because of that reason. So you can't kick people out of jobs and then use the jobs you kick people out of from people returning to work and then brag about job growth. That's not how that works. But I just wanted you guys to understand that that's the manipulation tactic that's going on. And it just so happened under Biden's watch. Sorry, that's just the way it is. You don't have to like it. Those are facts. They're literally using people returning to work out of the jobs they kicked them out of as job growth. Now that I'm putting it that way, you realize how stupid this is. Okay, so let me continue and go on with Kamala Harris going to the border. This isn't really important, but this is if you have a person in position that's speaking, they definitely should not be manipulating, miswording, or doing any type of tactic. So this is a huge umbrella undertaking to rip apart. So let me see if I can basically break this down. Okay, when it comes to this specific situation, the question of did Kamala Harris go to the border actually has two completely different contexts and meanings. Did she physically go? Or if she didn't go to the right spot, did she go? Meaning if she didn't go to the right spot, then she didn't go at all because her not going to the right spot means there was no reason, she might as well have not gone in the first place. So she really didn't go to the border. So this is where the situation started erupting into an argument between either side. The fact of the matter is, Kamala physically went to the border. She was standing there. But when it comes to this specific situation, since she did not go where it mattered, then she might as well have not gone in the first place. So what happens here is there's two word manipulations going on here because the deception is unreal. You can't say that, you can argue that she went to the border because she was physically standing there. But the context that she went to the border is what the actual point to that is. So people are like, how do you know? How did she not go to the border? This is, again, people being deceived into not understanding how the context is being used. The context is actually what matters. So, in this regard, Kamala Harris did not go to the border because she didn't go where it actually mattered. She only went and stood there physically to actually use the excuse that she went. So you can argue she didn't lie because she didn't. But when it comes to the actual context, she did lie because she didn't go where it actually mattered. Now, you can sit and argue that back and forth, but the fact remains, the context in this is what the actual argument is arguing for. So, I just wanted to get that out of the way. Now, I'm going to go up to the student loan forgiveness. There's a lot of confusion about this, but let me give you the manipulation tactics that I just heard on these briefings. Now, again, I want to be clear where I get my information from. I don't watch CNBC, NBC, Fox News, Newsmax. I don't watch these. I actually watch the briefings, these 3 to 4 hour briefings, and sometimes they're boring as shit. But that's where you get your information from. It's unedited, uncut. You get the full context and everything else. So this is why I don't take sides, because I actually am saying both sides are fucked up. So let me explain about Biden, the student loan forgiveness. For those of you who don't know, it is unconstitutional to pull what he's trying to pull, which means it's an actual crime. Okay, this is an actual crime. So let me explain what's going on here and break this down so you can understand it. Because I'm gonna, Biden administration is completely in the wrong for this. It's a complete crime. However, the people that are explaining this on the right are no better. Not that they're doing crimes, but they're just no better. So let me explain what I'm talking about. Okay. The U.S. Supreme Court, I forget what court circuit it was, but it was a legislative judge that had the authority to block that bill. Okay? The reason the bill was blocked is because it's illegal. Now, instead of saying it's illegal, I'm going to explain to you exactly why it's illegal. It's theft, period. You cannot force another individual to pay someone else's debt. That's coercion. You're not allowed to do it. It's an actual crime. If I wanted to voluntarily pay somebody's debt, that is perfectly fine because I'm choosing to do that. Being forced to do that is a crime, especially when you're weaponizing the justice system. So what's going on here? How is that a crime? How are they forcing people? What people do not understand is that in order to pay this type of debt, it comes from your tax money, period. Your tax money is your money. If you did not go to college, nobody has any authorization to try to force you through your tax money to pay off somebody else's college debt that they voluntarily chose to take on. That's a crime because it's forced theft. Period. It's unconstitutional. You're not allowed to do it. That is why the judge struck it down. Now, where Biden comes into where he's point blank lying, which is now another crime because it's the president doing it, he is lying to the American public because he literally stated, oh, we're going to push the wait off until January. What's the big deal, you say? The problem is he's saying it as he chose to do that. No, the court ordered him the court stopped him from doing this. He's been court ordered to stop doing this. So him stating, oh, I pushed it back, no, the court order forced him to do this. So he's acting like, oh yeah, we put it off till January. No, he put it off till January because he was ordered to do that. He had no choice in the matter. And he's up there talking as if he did this. No. So what's happening here is, it's not pushed back. It's in appeal. There's a difference because he's acting like, oh yeah, the student payments must resume. No, that's a crime, point blank, done and over with. Now, the other side that's trying to expose this, let me throw a scenario out. The people that are complaining about this are saying, oh, student debt, student loan, blah, 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 blah. Would have absolutely no problems if there was a forgiveness, if the loan just didn't have the student forgiveness, but it had mortgage forgiveness. Everybody who's opposed to this would be completely all over them. Yeah, I want part of my mortgage taken care of. How is that fair to the people who have apartments? So my point here is that people will argue a point only when it benefits them. And if it doesn't benefit them, they're going to condemn the other side up the ass. So I hope you guys are understanding how these manipulation tactics work. They're ridiculous. Once you start breaking this stuff down and going through it, you start to realize there's more going on behind the scenes than you realize. And there's one final thing I want to get out of the way, and that is the politicizing of kids for a political purpose. The Democrats are using the kids for sympathy to try to gain control of the gun control. And the rights, who are complaining that the Democrats shouldn't be using the kids, the Republicans, are actually using the kids for sympathy by telling people, let the kids go to school. Now, let me explain what's going on with this, because people are like, well, they don't really have anything to do with each other aside from school shootings. No. If you missed it, let me explain. Using kids for sympathy to gain political points is the actual connection point. Both sides are saying, the Democrats are saying, all right, we want your guns. People are having a problem with the Second Amendment, whatever the case may be on that. But when that didn't work, Obama started bringing up kids. That's the tactic that he was using. He was literally saying, because people aren't going to tolerate, guns stuff, guns being taken away from citizens. What he decided to do now was decided to say, hey, since this hasn't worked, let me try to gain the sympathy of people by showing, well, guns are killing kids and stuff like that, and brought that into play, because that's literally what he did. That's exactly what he did, and that's how to look at the situation. You have to go through all the bullshit and realize what is actually being said. So what happened is the Republicans decided to take that concept. Oh, he's preying on the kids, preying on the sympathy for kids. Oh, he couldn't get the guns for kids, and now he's doing this for kids. Regardless of the case, that's what he was doing. However, this is where the Republicans fucked up. Because the Republicans, when the Democrats had all the lockdowns and, kids being people being forced to wear masks and all these mask mandates, guess what the Republicans did? Forcing kids to wear masks is bad. Forcing kids to stay out of school is bad. They literally started using the kids in that regard as sympathy. This is how screwed up the media is with politics. As I just said, you have to understand that once you peel the stuff back, you realize that both sides are doing the exact same thing they're condemning the other side for doing. It's absurd. This is the mindset that gets you to think differently. You have to analyze things, step back, and see exactly what's going on. And again, when you go to a magician, you're expected to be deceived. When you're dealing with Congress and the social media, they have no business deceiving you, especially about stuff that actually matters to people. That being said, I know it was a long lesson, it was a long video, but I hope you guys learned something from this. And again, please stay safe during the holidays. Happy Thanksgiving. It's Massive Magician signing out. Thanks for watching.